One.
Bro, you're kind of weak sauce.
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, you want to get stronger?
Yeah?
Well, check this out.
That's sick! That's right, okay? Now I know there's some of us out there that aren't the strongest, alright? I'm not Mr. Muscular, I accept that, and Taijutsu Specialist lets me live out that fantasy of just rocking people's world. Now, if you are in fact a little weaker, and that's okay, try hitting the sub button, alright? Look, I'm just saying, you hit the sub button, there's at least a non-0% chance you get stronger. All right, I'm just saying, go ahead, do it, drop the sub. It's always worth a shot, right? Right? Now going ahead and hopping straight into our goodness. Yes, sir, off rip. That's what we're about in this channel, okay? If you want to get min-maxy and you want to get real cute with a Taijutsu Specialist, honestly, you can get a really high dex and a really high wisdom score for your two main ability scores. Now, the reason why, one, Taijutsu Specialist lets you perform your taijutsu stuff with dexterity or strength. It is your choice. So having a high dex is nice. It helps your AC. Now, the reason we want our second ability score to be a high wisdom, or first, depending on which way you want to take this, is you have something called unarmored defense, which for your AC calculation, instead of taking armor into account, and instead of taking just dexterity and that kind of stuff, you get to add your wisdom modifier as well. So you can stay unarmored, which keeps you light, no penalties to anything, and you get to have a ridiculously high natural AC with not even counting any jutsus that might buff it in the future. Now, if you want to be a little more, plain, or maybe you're using a clan that benefits a lot from strength, by all means, just go into strength. You're not going to need that dex wisdom nonsense, but, always a cute option to look for. Past that, between your con, your intelligence, that kind of stuff, you can kind of bounce it around. I usually recommend having your con at least as a pretty high number because, health and chakra is important and all. Now, honestly, when it comes to clans, Taijutsu Specialist is pretty flexible for the most part. If it's a clan that revolves around their ninjutsu or like their clan jutsu specifically, this isn't going to be the pick. But if you are going for that dex wisdom, Namikaze's a great pick. They give you good dex, tons of speed, really beneficial. If you're going that strength route, something like Hoshigaki can be really cool because they transform, they get bonuses to strength, you just hit stupid hard. And lastly, if you want to get kind of cute, something like an Inuzuka honestly works pretty well. Gives you a dog companion and you can run in there and have two of you instead of one. They also work really well with dexterity as well because they're big on being fast, being speedy, getting in, getting out, all that kind of good stuff. Hopping straight into jutsus, you're looking for taijutsu. I know, crazy concept here, right? But in particular, really look at your combos and finishers. The reason being, one, finishers are dumb strong. A lot of them will do a lot of single target damage. Some of them AoE, kind of depends as to which one it is, but it's just big numbers, okay? If you're trying to be big boy, big number, you're gonna want to look at your combo finishers. As for the combos, things to keep in mind. Your finisher will not be procced unless you hit that combo, which is why they're so strong. They take a little prerequisite and a little bit of setup. For combos, things that hit multiple times are really good because you're just upping your chances of actually starting it. Things that are fairly safe, right? So things that, hey, if they do miss, you have other options outside of them, are always kind of safe bets. For finisher jutsus, keep in mind you probably don't want to use it unless you are actually using it as a finisher. They tend to be pretty expensive, but again, that's because once you use them after using a combo, they just do stupid numbers. So, make your call, choose what you want. I highly recommend looking into your combo finishers. Now, as for roleplay expectations, it kind of depends what you put your stats into, per usual, but for taijutsu users, you're typically going to be fairly athletic, whether it's dexterity or strength, or both, but at least one of the two, so you're going to be able to perform a lot of different things and do a lot of actions that maybe you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Besides that, you have a lot of options when it comes to either, having your best one in intelligence or wisdom or charisma or something like that. Since those three stats are kind of interchangeable, especially for a taijutsu user, it's kind of up to you as to where you want to pivot the character in that sense. Now, our last thing before we hop into subclasses is going to be your combat expectations, and this is pretty much what you'd imagine it. You're a taijutsu user. You're going to be running in and hitting hard. Now you can either go the side of a little bit more tanky and you can run in and fight and take hits and just be an absolute bruiser, or you can be a really quick taijutsu user that really tries not to get hit. Again, leaning back to my kind of Dex Wisdom combo if that's something you want to lean into. But either way, you're going to be pretty melee dependent. You're going to have maybe a few AoE things, but most of the time it's going to be centered around you. So if you want to get in the mix, you want to be fighting close range, you want to be getting in there, Taijutsu user is your best combat move. Now, as for the subclasses for a Taijutsu user, not to throw any shots at Taijutsu users, but they tend to be fairly basic, right? Like you understand the idea, you know what you're doing, and so the subclasses aren't any different. It's going to slightly alter the way you fight, but not by much. And for example, leading into our first one, we have Disturbance, which really revolves around trickery, hitting from multiple angles, kind of going in and out of unarmed and armed combat. So if you want to be a little fancy, do a little extra pizzazz in your combat, get you some Disturbance. Now, like I talked about before, if you really love that bruiser role and you really want to just get in there and tank it all, Ironclad is your move, okay? These guys are big on brute strength and armoring themselves up. So you like being a little tanky, but still putting out some damage? Ironclad it is. Now, for what I think is actually one of the more unique ones in terms of options, you have your Nin-Tai option, which basically lets you be a Taijutsu user while getting an elemental release and being able to weave ninjutsu in and out of what you're doing. So if you like the idea of a Taijutsu Specialist, but you do want to use a bit more jutsu and you want to be at least slightly ranged and kind of have a mix and some variation, Nin-Tai is it. Alright, this one I'm not even going to talk much about because I know a lot of you are probably going to be interested in this one, and this is the Passionate Youth subclass. Do you want to open the 8 gates? Alright, you want to be Rock Lee, you want to be Might Guy, okay, this is it. This subclass is all about using the 8 gates, releasing them, getting that power, and just going ham jabroni. So if you like the idea of that, you're a bit of a Rock Lee stan, okay, well, get you some Passionate Youth. Now, maybe, instead of being passionate, you want to be a little angy boy, okay? You want to get in there, you want to be rude, you want to be upset. Righteous Fury is your speed, alright? These guys are all about getting upset, maybe getting some rage, but hitting fast and hitting hard. So if you just want to see red and you want to punch things and deal numbers, Righteous Fury is going to be your subclass. And now for the second subclass that I think is also a little unique, similar to Nin-Tai, and that's going to be your Ruin subclass. But caveat, these guys are kind of similar to Science Nin. So if you're running a campaign that doesn't exist in the Boruto era, Ruin's just not going to make sense, and your DM probably wouldn't allow it anyway. But that's what these guys do. They fight with some science technology. You know, they buff themselves through different items, things of that sort. Almost cyborgy, right? Something along those lines. So if you like the idea of Science Nin, but you want to be a little more physical in Taijutsu, go for some Ruin. Now our second to last option here is Stancer. And Stancer is honestly pretty unique. So for those that don't know, as a Taijutsu Specialist, you're going to have fighting stances, which are going to do usually minor buffs and tweaks to either your damage, your way of fighting, things of that nature. And Stancer lets you bounce between multiple fighting stances in the middle of a fight, which you kind of can do, but you're not going to be nearly as effective at it without this option. So if you want a class that's honestly a little more complicated and allows you some variability and like fighting in various fun styles in the midst of it, Stancer's a really good choice. And last but not least, we have the Talent and Focus subclass. Now this subclass is going to be your most baseline subclass for a Taijutsu Specialist, okay? If you look at the Taijutsu Specialist class and you're like, dang, I love those options, I think they're cool, I don't really need much variability in my subclass to have fun and have a good time, Talent Focus is perfect, okay? It takes what the Taijutsu Specialist does and amps it up, right? It just makes it stronger, makes it better. So if you really like where it's at and you don't feel like it needs much more addition, get you some Talent and Focus because it just makes it that much better. And there you have it. That's the Taijutsu Specialist. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. And like I said, go ahead and hit that sub button, all right? Even if it makes you a little stronger, it's still worth it. But nonetheless, I'm going to see you guys in the next video. Y'all have a good one. Peace out.